Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming World of Illusions event, Divine Odin. This is the last Divine Synergy board. The synergy units for the event are Gabranth, Paine, Sazh, Layle, Rude and Steiner. The featured units will be getting their force enhancement boards unlocked. Gabranth BT and FR will be making their debut. Gabranth, Paine, Layle and Rude will be getting their C90 awakening and reworks. Both Gabranth and Layle BT will be realizable. We will be fighting the Odin material. It has 110 million HP. The turn requirement is 115. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. As we are no longer have Lufania Plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. As your party has low force levels at the start of the era, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. For this fight, the boss force gauge is broken into 4 thresholds. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 20%, the boss will activate a field effect that reduce your party's defense and brave damage resist down by 10% and brave damage reduced by 30%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 40%, the field effect will be stronger where your party's defense and brave damage resist will reduced by 30% and brave damage down by 50%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 60%, in addition to the field effects, the Odin will boost its attack, speed, brave damage up and HP damage up by 10%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 80%, in addition to the field effects, the Odin will boost its attack, speed, brave damage up and HP damage up by 30%. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. Odin has a big pool of HP and you are probably facing great brave damage resistances. Odin will have additional aura effects when it activates its Fury stance, which I will discuss about it in the later slides. Make sure you upkeep your debuffs and auras so you can maintain your damage output. At the 100% threshold, the boss will use its force ability Zantetsuken Divine and activates its force time for 3 turns. The boss force ability, Zantetsuken Divine, is a guaranteed hit, reset break status, AoE brave plus HP attack. It will dispel all targets left hand most buff and inflict plasma / debuff, a frame 30% defense down debuff for 8 turns. If it breaks any target with its force ability, it will instantly KO the unit. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with counter of 3 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, similar to the previous fight, Odin will also apply a field effect where your party turns gets delayed by 1 turn after the unit acts. When force time is activated and a target is inflicted with plasma / debuff, Odin will use Doppelrunstreak Plus, which is a guaranteed hit, single target brave plus HP that will instantly KO its target. Make sure that no unit is inflicted with the debuff when Odin acts during its force time. If you are bringing debuff evasion unit like Ignis, Selpha, or Lena, make sure that the debuff evasion buff isn't on the left hand most slot or you will face the risk it getting dispelled. If you got inflicted, make sure you cleanse the debuffs before Odin could act. To freeze the enemy's force time, you need to use a melee force ability which is Gabranth, Camlanot and Desch FR at the moment. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of Call's abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Fran, Ignis, Lily Set, Maria, and Dark Knight Cecil are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Kumari, Alisai, Priyash, Leo and Locke are also viable. Most recently C90 units have Aura type HP damage up bonuses. You can use Dissidia DB Call Finder to find out more. This is a battle of breaks. Odin will power up whenever it breaks a target. Likewise, you can power it down by breaking it. Calls that inflict rebreak are Chaos LDCA, Arania Base Call, Noel Calls, and Palem LDCA. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. For any endgame fights like Lufania and Shinryu, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. You can consider bringing Selpha, Lena, Ishtala, Yuna, Garnet, Horam, Rem, and Ramza. Selpha can make your party hit hard with her guaranteed launch debuff, while Lena can ensure your party is always safe with her powerful HP regen buffs. Both Lena and Selfie are top-notch debuff evasion supports. Yuna can offer debuff cleansing as well other than her powerful BT auras. The boss doesn't have a lot of HP attacks, but it can be very dangerous with its hard-hitting moveset. It is advisable to bring a damage mitigator if you doing a hit and counter run. You can consider Leela, Beatrix, Snow, Zack, Edge, Warrior of Light, Orin, and Golov. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, or Edge are great here. Do note that the boss has a brave attack called Doppelhau which will bypass shields and evasion, as it will guarantee breaks to inflict break. In addition to the support and tanks, you can bring the following units if you have them. Ursula, Kor, Alphanod, and Kais can offer break immunity with their buffs. Ursula will be returning on the coming banner and has a very strong FR to counter the boss mechanics. She and Vaughn can offer max brave floor, which is useful to prevent unnecessary breaks. Vaughn can only activate brave floor with his BT aura. As mentioned earlier, this fight is a game of breaks. Rebreakers are very useful for this fight as they can reset break status, so you can inflict break to reduce Odin's fury stacks. Examples are Noel, Lightning, Chaos, Zell, and Palem. There are LD only runs featuring Zell or Palem with selfie and a delayer like Leo or Quistis. If you want to ensure Odin is always available for breaks, you can make use of Sephiroth BT aura. Optimal FR to use for this fight are Gabranth, Titus, Desch and Camlanod. If you fulfill the 3 conditions of Ice, Disable and Launch, you can nuke Odin down fast before it could pose any threat with Camlanod FR. Gabranth, the featured BT unit, has a wide arsenal of rebreak mechanics and a very strong BT aura. Titus is very strong for this fight for the damage output, debuffs, and his rebreaks with jet shot. Pair him with Paine firing lancets in the background, you can do heavy amount damage easily with him. Desch FR work well here as a countermeasure due to delay effect of the boss turns. However, you will need to pair him with turn disabler like Camlanod, Kryl, or Fang to make his FR better. Have him stay in his anti-physical stance, as Odin's attack are mainly melee attacks. As Shinryu is about building up your force gauge chargers units are great to deploy here. Characteristics of force charger are the unit have substantial amount of instant turn non-attacking abilities. At max force enhancement level 30, one such instant turn ability can supercharge the force gauge by a whopping 50%. You can easily amplify your force time damage by abusing the supercharging mechanics. Examples of such force gauge chargers units are Kryl, Braska, Pernello and Ignis. For other recommendations, you can consider the following. For tanks, you can bring Warrior of Light, Orin, and Steiner. Kais offers break immunity with his smash support buff and also helps a lot with the guaranteed launches. Odin does have a massive pool of HP, so launch is important here. Damage dealers like Paine, Layle, Machina, and Jet are useful here as well. Like Titus, Machina can do boss no turns for this fight when you paired him with Camlanod FR. Layle can launch Odin all day. If you are doing the hit and counter game, constant brave refunding and powerful defense boost are important. Rosa and Paladin Cecil offer powerful aura for the party. The two other C90 units, Paine and Rude, get decent upgrades to their kit. Paine can cleanse debuffs with her LD, and her status break are very useful in weakening Odin. Rude is a punching medic who ensure your party health is always in tip-top condition. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. Like Lufania, SHINRYU fights also features aura boosts for the boss when their HP are depleted to a certain threshold. The stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight and 49%. Like other SHINRYU fights, the enemy's force gauge will charge faster as their HP depletes. As the enemy's force gauge reaches 20% and above, Odin will start to apply aura fields that lowers your party defense, brave damage resistance, and reduce your brave damage. At 60% and above, it will also gain stats boosts on top of the field effects. The boss force ability Zantetsuken Divine is a guaranteed hit, AoE Brave plus HP, and inflict an 8-turn plasma / debuff. While in force time, if any unit is inflicted with that debuff, it will use Doppelrunstreak plus to KO the target. You can prevent it with debuff evasion or make sure you cleanse the debuff before Odin gets a turn. Odin has a Fighting Spirit Fury power-up mechanic. When the aura is powered up, it will also activate a strong 300% max brave and max HP down auras. You can identify the stance by the color of the aura. At level 1 or yellow aura stance, Odin will apply 300% max brave down and 50% max HP down aura to the field. At level 2 or red aura stance, Odin will apply the same field effects and prevent your party from gaining any new buffs. At level 3 or mounted unity stance, Odin will use Zantetsuken Divine Plus, where it will buff wipe your party and KO the entire party. It will gain levels by breaking your party. Likewise, it will also lose levels when you break it. Rebreakers are very useful here, or you make use of the general 5-action Brave Reset Break rule to initiate a break to lower the aura. Odin can power up itself at certain HP thresholds. Do watch out for the threshold activated at the 19%, where Odin will gain 2 stacks instead of 1. Odin can also warp its turn forward with cut in turn order at the 79%, 49%, and 9% HP threshold. It will also gain 2 instant turns after the warp turn. Make sure your party are protected against its subsequent brave attacks. Overall, this fight isn't that difficult as long as you have units that you can handle the mechanics. Evasion tanks like Layle, Glove, Edge, or 8 will have a nice field day in this battle. If you have Camlanaut, Machina, or Titus, you can easily do boss no turns thanks to Camlanaut broken FR mechanics. Make sure you are not in a position to receive breaks when the boss force time is activated, as any break against Zantetsuken Divine means a KO. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Similar to any Lufania fights, for SHINRYU fights, the boss will also gain stats boosts and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete the boss's HP to a certain threshold. However, SHINRYU bosses will also gain HP damage reduction auras as well. The threshold's trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 49% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 50%. It will raise its brave damage and brave gain reduction auras to 80%. It will also reduce your HP damage dealt by 50%. At 49% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 100% and the HP damage dealt reduction auras to 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain reductions, you can bring a brave gain up support like Agrias, Ram, or Quistis. With the recent units released, you shouldn't have any problem in handling the brave gain or damage reduction auras. For HP damage reduction auras, HP damage up calls will only partly offset against the reductions. However, you can easily overwrite them with your party force time. As we progress through the era, we will gain access to units with FR that allows you to build up your force time HP damage bonuses up to 999%. Learning on how to take full advantage of the damage window in Shinryu fight holds the key on how to make Shinryu fights easier. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. Let's start off by understanding how Odin's fighting spirit or fury mechanic works. On the top of the screen, you can see a diagram flow of the stances. When it is emitting a yellow aura, its fury is at level 1. When it is emitting a red aura, its fury is at level 2. When you see the message prompt Mounted Unity, its fury is at level 3 and it will follow up with Zantetsuken Divine Plus, which will wipe your party out. When Fury Stacks is activated, it will have your party's max HP and reduces your party max brave by 300%. At level 2, you can't refresh your buffs or gain new buffs. At level 3, it is a game over. Having a lower max brave pool means you have less brave to withstand Odin's brave attacks. Thus, it is important to keep Odin off the fury state where possible. Otherwise, you can just don't let it have a turn with delays, turn deletion, or use a turn disable debuff like paralysis or confusion. You can reduce its fury state by breaking Odin. If it is in break status, make use of rebreak abilities to get Odin out break status so you can inflict a break to lower its stacks. Like other bosses, for every 5 actions, they will reset their break status. At the following threshold, 89%, 79%, 69%, 49%, 39%, and 9%, it will gain 1 stacks of fury. At the 19% HP threshold, it will gain 2 stacks of fury. If it is at level 1 when it activates this, it will jump straight into Mounted Unity and follow up with Zantetsuken Divine Plus for a party wipe. In addition to the fury stacks, at the following thresholds, 79%, 49%, and 9%, Odin will activate Cut in Turn order, where it will move its turn forward with 2 instant turns. Make sure your party are protected against breaks when this is triggered. A counter tank will be useful here to counter Odin to break it, or you can prevent breaks with max brave floor units like Ursula or Vaughn, or having break immunity units like Ursula, Yang, Alphanod, Locke, and Kais. Generally, this fight is a battle of breaks. Odin gains stacks when it breaks your party. Likewise, it loses stacks if it got broken by your party. Make use of unbreak and rebreak mechanics to inflict break to reset its fury levels. There is a wide cast of units that can do this. I have shown some examples on the screen. My general advice is that you try to keep Odin at the base state when you trigger the thresholds. Turn manipulation, delay, turn deletions and launches are good utility to ensure you have the turns to reset the Odin break status. I have come to the last slide of the guide. By now, you should have at least 1 FR. Generally, you just charge up your force gauge. Have the FR unit activate their force time with their force ability. Prepare for a big damage phase either through a unit burst phase or supercharge the gauge with Kaine's follow-up. To build up the bonuses efficiently, you need bring a force gauge charger. Examples are Pernello, Kryle, Ignis or Braska. At force level 30, these units can boost the force charge with 50% with their instant turn, non-attacking ability on top of the force time conditions. If you bring Paine or using Paine BT friend as support, have him activate his BT aura and let him stay in the air firing the lancets while your force gauge charger is spamming his or her instant turns. If you have Camlanot fully built with FR and BT, you can abuse his powerful FR mechanics by fulfilling 3 of the following conditions. 1. Constant launches. Selfie LD debuff, Kai's hero support or Sid Rain's LDCA on your burst unit. 2. Ice enchant. You can use Karasame LDCA for party ice enchant or bring an ice enchanter like Celis, Onion Knight, or Karasame himself. Snow also offers party-wide ice enchant with his BT aura. 3. Make sure you inflict a turn disable debuff on the boss. Camlanot BT is the easiest to set up. You can go through a setup process for this as well. When all conditions are met, the party can meet 80% HP damage bonus with a full party launch. Now let's recap on the boss key mechanics. The boss hits pretty hard and gets more dangerous if it inflicts breaks on your party. To reset its fury stacks you need to inflict break on Odin. Make use of turn manipulation, delay, turn deletions and launches to maximize the amount of turns you can have before Odin get its turn. Launches are important here as Odin has a massive pool of HP to shred. Max Brave Floor or Break Immunity is a very useful utility for the fight. Examples are Ursula, Kor, Alphanod, Kais, Locke, and Vaughn. When its force time is activated, do not get broken by it or the broken ally will get KO. If you got inflicted by its plasma/debuff, make sure you cleanse it before Odin gets a turn, otherwise it will use Doppelrunstreak Plus, which will instantly KO the target. Bring debuff evasion units or debuff cleansers to handle this. Now I will make a quick overview on the FR of featured unit, Gabranth. To fulfill Gabranth's FR condition is pretty simple: inflict break on enemy or attack a debuff target. Breaks that trigger off turns like trigger of traps or counters won't fulfill the condition. The breaks need to be trigger while taking a turn. Gabranth has a lot of rebreak mechanics. Rebreaker units like Titus, Jet, Noel, Lightning, Chaos, Cloud of Darkness and Vayne works well with this FR. Sephiroth BT Aura will ensure the enemies are always available for breaks as it will always set the target's brave to 1 for you to break. Gabranth doesn't have strong attacks as a unit, but it can offer very crippling debuffs that will help you in the tide of battle. It has potent HP damage up while lower the boss's attacks with crippling debuffs. Its strong debuffs can punish foes. 3 out of 4 abilities have rebreak mechanic. His BT Aura offers great power-up effects where you can access to its Felon's Punishment debuff that offers 80% attack down, 120% brave poison, increase HP damage taken by 30% against affected target and halves the HP damage from targets that are inflicted with the debuff. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight in the coming days. Bye.